Susan B. Anthony was largely responsible for giving women the right to vote in 1920. And less than 50 years earlier, she was arrested for voting. Well, Susan was born February 15, 1820, to Quaker parents in Adams, Massachusetts. She later said, "I had all the freedom I wanted from the time I was a child." Well, Susan was a precocious child and learned to read and write at the age of 3. Now, she probably also hand-stitched quilt blocks like the 9-patch, pretty typical children's patterns. And maybe even as she got better, she tried the monkey wrench, a little bit harder. Eventually, she taught school for $1.50 a week plus board. And when her brother-in-law said, "I'd rather see a woman make biscuits than solve the naughtiest problems in algebra," well, she replied, "There is no reason why she should not be able to do both." She attended her first temperance meeting in 1849, and when she tried to speak, she was told she was there to listen. Well, she marched out of that hall, and from that moment on, her life was one of action, and many times it was done at a tea party. Well, the 14th and 15th Amendments gave black men the right to vote. The women had been left out. In 1872, she decided to test her rights, and over teacups, her sisters plotted just how they would get the registrar of voters to accept their vote. Well, the Anthony sisters voted all right, and 2 weeks later, they were arrested. The lawyer posted bail, and the hostile judge refused her testimony. He dismissed the jury, fined her $100, which she refused to pay. But the judge decided he wouldn't put her in jail because he didn't want her to take it to a higher court. Well, Susan B. Anthony came out of that a heroine, and for her life's work, I dedicate the next block in the Stars Across America sampler. What's our 8th block? It's the middle block in the 3rd row. And those 2 dark points on the stars just tend to intertwine with each other. It's great. Now, Dee Brawley made this quilt, and it's just great in Victorian colors, turquoise and mauve. And she took those 4 blocks and set them together with stars. And then to finish it off, she added a border with a mirror image on it. It's beautiful. Well, I vote we get started on this block. Susan B. Anthony is joining a number of her friends in the Gallery of Stars. There's Harriet Beecher Stowe, Sojourner Truth. Now, both she and Sojourner fought for the rights of women to vote, both black and white. However, their stars are just a little different. Let me show you. Now, they both have the hourglass centers. This one has the 4 points, the 4 dark points that tend to just twirl around that star. And then here are the burgundy points. They're smaller, sticking out here. Now, this piece right here in Sojourner's star is repeated 4 times. And then in Susan B. Anthony's, that same piece is only used 2 times. And then down here, the other 2 feature large burgundy star points and then smaller blues. And that's what gives it that intertwining effect. Those points just look like they twirl around each other. Now, these are the pieces that you need for her star. We're going to start with that hourglass right in the middle, little different in pieces. This particular one starts out with a 2 with a 3 1/4 inch square right here. Draw a diagonal line, sew down both sides, 1/4 inch seam, these 2 pieces right sides together. When you cut them apart and you open them up and press them, then you square them to the second piece. This piece is 2 5/8. You have 2 solid squares, 2 of these, put them together and just sew them up. And when you do that, you've got to check. Make sure that piece is 4 3/4 inches, because if it's not, better check your seam allowance. That's the very center. Now, the points of the star come from those 2 darks, and make sure they are very dark so that you can see the points. The first size piece right here, 2 of these are layered up, right sides are just stacked up in a pile, and they are 3 7/8. Now this second piece right here, there's 2 of those stacked up. These are 5 1/8. And right here, these are the background squares. They are 3.5 inches. You need to have 4 of them. So let's just go ahead, take the 6 by 12, drop it corner to corner, 1 cut on the diagonal on this one, and then once again, a second cut. Ooh, these better be stacked up perfectly, because if they don't go out to the corners, it's hard to match later. And another diagonal cut. Now, whenever you sew these pieces together, you have to take and separate out 2 and 2. So let's have 2 background in this stack. Leave these like that. Take these 2 and put them on the opposite side. You need to have those different arrangements of the pieces so you get that intertwining effect. And then it's just the same 1/4 inch assembly line sewing that we did before. So take the top piece, you do have a square corner, flip it right sides together, get that square corner lined up, 1/4 inch seam, 15 stitches to the inch, and just step on the gas. Got that, approximately 3/8 inch tip right down on the corner, and then just chain this piece right behind it. Then as soon as that one's done, got your tip hanging out there, let's just go ahead, take this second set, and when you sew it this time, the background square is on the top. So you're actually doing that opposite type of sewing. Well, it's interesting about Susan B. Anthony because she never did marry. She remained single her whole life. It wasn't that she didn't like men. She just didn't find anybody that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. And she kind of joked about it and used her wit to get over it. She said, oh, well, man, she said, those bachelors, they're just perfect nuisances to society. She said, now, old maids, why, they're just clever creatures. So let's take these pieces right now, set the seam, and open that. So I'm pushing the seam right now towards the background. So we'll flip this one over, go over this way. I really prefer to have that seam right behind the background. Ah, looking good. 2 different sets here, different colors. So let's just go ahead, stack these up here. Take these 2 pieces and cut them apart. Now, you're going to do the mix-up. Let's see, right here, we're going to put the blue and the burgundy right here like that, and then this piece will be the opposite. And then down here, let's go ahead and take these pieces. We're always going to put blue and burgundy, and then right here, large burgundy right here with the blue. So you have 4 different ones. Got them all lined up, ready to go. And then just flip them right sides together. Match up the points. You're going to have about a 3/8 inch tip hanging out on the bottom. Hold those threads. Get them stepping on the gas. Line them up. But, you know, she really did like children, fortunately, because her best friend of 50 years, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, had 7 children, and actually they teamed up and they had such a great thing going for them. Susan B. was the organizer, and the other one was the thinker, the doer. She wrote all of the speeches. So Susan had to sit and often just jostle her children on her lap when she was stirring the pudding, while Elizabeth wrote all of the scripts. Boy, what a great piece of teamwork, because they worked on some changes in divorce laws and birth control, women's issues, earning more money for women. So there were all kinds of great things. Okay, one more, and we are just about done. You get down to that bottom edge, and you can see right here, that's all lined up. And all you need to do is just push that seam and push it towards the triangle if you want, or towards the background. But I have those pieces already done. I just want to show you how you lay them out. Just take the large dark blue point. It's going to go one right here. This one goes right in the opposite corner. And then look at these small blue points, because we've got to work with those next. We're going to put one right here and one right here, opposite each other too. Ooh, looking good. And then the hourglass is going to go right here in the middle like that. And then the very last piece is one piece, It's a 7 1/4 light background. Ooh, and let me get that cut-in force on the diagonal. So just line up your 6 by 12, corner to corner, cut it on one diagonal, and then just go ahead, turn your ruler, line it up right on those corners, and cut a second time. This is the same that we've done for a number of the blocks so that those just fit right in there perfectly. Line that up. Oh, it's looking good. So then all you need to do is just flip the middle row over to the first row. Do your vertical rows, match up those outside edges. You'll have a great looking block. Susan B. Anthony is certainly a star, and Annette Hester is as well. She made this quilt, made 4 blocks, and then she set 9 stars around the blocks. Now, I want to show you how to do this 8-pointed star right here, and then as soon as I show you the star, then I want to show you how to do the border treatments. Now make first your 4 blocks, and then as soon as you make them, cut 3-inch lattice. Now, go ahead, line up your lattice underneath. The first thing that you want to do is just take your rotary cutter and ruler, trim off that selvage edge, just get rid of it. And then over in the other side, your block should be approximately 12 1/2 inches square, but add an extra 1/8 inch, because as you sew on those points on the star, that tends to shrink up. Well, you could go ahead and just take a piece of fabric and mark off a 1 3/4 inch grid. Oh, 72 1 3/4 inch squares. Draw diagonal lines, cut them apart. But I have an easier way. I want to show you how to do an easy technique of sewing. Let's just take your ruler and center your needle. Oh, my needle is centered. Going to just drop that down in there and put my ruler on the right side of my needle and just use some 1/4 inch tape and line that up. Ooh, let's see if I can drive this straight. Just go ahead, drop your tape right down. Whoa, that is a pretty good size piece. Don't quite need it that long. Now, once you have that tape going right off from that center needle, take a 3-inch lattice and 1 3/4 inch square and just line it up right sides together. And what you want to do is just start so that your needle is right on that very corner. Hold your threads so it doesn't eat it, and then make sure that the corner is lined up right with the edge of that line. And you just want to keep your eye on that line as you feed it through, and then there's just a point where you lose it and you're on your way. Okay, we've got 12 of these to do. So just take and set up the next one, line that up, get your corner right anchored, line it up straight down here, and just zip it across. Well, this whole system works pretty good. It's a lot of fun. You can feed it through fast. Use it for like snowball technique, sewing the star log cabin. But let me show you one other trick too. I just love this one. Take up your tape, and you need to have this piece of plastic that's all marked with it. And you take this one section that you've cut out right here. You always have to just keep it, hold on to it, don't get rid of it, but turn your needle so that it's right in that point. Now once you have that needle in place, take this piece, slide that up here, and then just use some clear cellophane tape and tape it in place. Oh, did I shift that off a little bit? Nope, still good. Hold it down tight, tape it on all 3 sides. Now once you have it taped in place, raise your needle and remove this piece of plastic. Now we are cooking. Okay, same thing. Take those 3-inch lattice strips right side up. Take this 1 3/4 inch square, right sides together. And now this time you can see that all pre-marked right on here is that diagonal line. So you're just going to sew through. Just keep that lined up. Now you're going to assembly line sew all 12 right through, and then as soon as you get all 12, ooh, let me just do one more. Get that lined up and move that on. You know, a lot of times people just like to eyeball this step. Maybe that's not that easy to do, to eyeball, but if you have some markings, then you can utilize it. Okay, once you have it sewn on one side, just turn it, and you're actually going to do that very same step right in the opposite side. Listen, while I do this, why don't I just tell you about some of Susan B. Anthony's other friends, and oh, they were stars too. Oh, I love this one friend, Amelia Bloomer. And if you just think about her name, take a guess what she introduced to those ladies. Amelia Bloomer, of course, said, "Oh, of course, those clothes that you ladies are wearing, my goodness, they weigh 25 to 40 pounds. Why don't you get on, a loose-fitting pair of pants? They should be loose at the waist and kind of flow out and then go in at the cuff. That'll be great. And then go ahead and wear a tunic down to the waist." Well, she promoted that. It sounded like such a good idea. Elizabeth was wearing it. Susan was wearing it. Everybody laughed at them so much, they gave it up. But boy, if they only saw what we were doing now, huh? Okay, so now that you've got that all sewn onto both sides, then all you need to do is just go ahead, take this and trim it right along here. Trim it on both sides. Get rid of those tips. I'm just going to show you how to do it just on this one side because the technique is the same. Just drop it on your iron. You can set the seam and then just fold that out like so and press all of those points. Then once you have that all pressed, then all you're going to do is just clip these pieces apart. Well, we are nearly there. Let me just cut these and I'll just show you one more side and then we'll go on. So once you have it done on this side, then the next step is to put it right on this corner. You're going to sew on the diagonal line again, and then when you fold that out, you're going to have that 1/4 inch right there. I have my stack ready. I'm going to show you right here. Got 12 of these ready, plus you need to have 12 more, just 2 by 3 inch pieces sewed on 2 sides of those. That's all set. Now, I want to show you that little border treatment. It's just some piece triangles, pretty easy to do. You want to start out, this is what the piece looks like. Start out with a grid. That is a 2.5 inch grid. Draw on your diagonal lines and then just sew on both sides of the diagonal line and just sew continuously. So you get back to where you started. And then once you draw on the diagonal lines, then all you want to do is just go ahead, cut these apart, press the seam to the dark side, and these will be squared up to 2 inches, just like this. Got one already done. 2 inch squares, and then from another light background, 2.5 inch square. Let's just turn it so you can see it exactly like this. From a 2.5 inch background square, first you're going to sew a triangle on one side, and then you're going to sew a triangle on the opposite side, just so you get that right in there. Looking good. There's only one more piece that you need. You need to have a dark piece that is 4 inches. You're going to flip that right sides together, sew that right on there, and when your sewing is done, you're going to just square that up to 3.5 inches. Well, let me just finish this sewing and I'll show you how to lay out that top. Susan, Elizabeth, and Amelia had another friend, and her name was Lucy Stone. All 4 stars, of course. And she also believed in equal rights and fought for women's right to vote. Now, I have all 4 of my stars also sewn together from top to bottom in vertical rows. They're just hung together by threads, just waiting to finish off. And when I did it, I also arranged my blocks so that the burgundies tend to swirl right around the center. Put in that motion. Now to finish off this last row, I need to have the 3 inch lattice. It's going to go right here next to it, and these corners are also 3 inch squares, so they're going to go right in place. So all I need to do is just sew this vertical row on and then sew the whole way across, have the whole top done. Now the last section comes from more of the blue. This is a 2 inch piece and it's cut the same size as the block. And these pieces, because there's no stitching in it, this right here is the 2 by 3 inch with the points on 2 sides. Right here, going to be a 2 inch square to finish off that corner. And let's see if I can just keep on going right around this edge. Here's the point right here, and then the lattice right there. All right, so that completes the whole top. Now, the outside border, those little points, you're going to take them and literally create a mirror image so that you have them pointing into each other, and pair up your pieces, assembly line sew them so that you have 6 going out one side and 6 going out the other. And you're going to be making 4 sets. And let's see if I can just go ahead and pull this one set right up here and make sure that you match that line right here with the mirror image with the seam right on the star. Line that up there. All right, that's looking good. Let me keep these stars together here. And then this second piece is going to go right along here. Now what happens whenever you sew this together, when these pieces all have their seams in, these are just a little oversized right here. Well, don't worry about that because you're going to go ahead and take care of this corner with a 6-inch piece that you cut once on the diagonal. Oh, the nice dark burgundy. And this one's been cut, and watch how that's just going to fit right in there so that you literally cut this triangle right on the angle there and cut it right on that angle. And then it just works it out. You put it right sides together. Make sure you get that position so that you allow for that 1/4-inch seam. Stitch right along there and then fold that out. What a clever way to get away with a tricky corner. Well, Lucy Stone said she was never going to get married. She just wouldn't have a thing to do with it. She said she didn't want to lose all of her rights. Well, a young man by the name of Henry Blackwell fell in love with her, courted her for 2 years, and finally she said, okay, we'll get married. Only one condition. She said, I want to take the word obey out of the marriage ceremony. She said, we're going to have an equal marriage here, so I want the word obey out. And so they went ahead and got married, went on to even have children, had a great life. But when Lucy got married, she decided to keep her maiden name. And from that time forward, all of the women that got married and chose to keep their single name were referred to as Lucy Stoners. What a great bunch of fun. Well, let me go ahead and sew my top together. Susan B. Anthony would approve of this top. It's so patriotic looking, it reminds me of the 4th of July. Well, on July 4th, 1876, the centennial celebration was held in Philadelphia. The National Women's Suffrage Association was denied a request to speak at the celebration, but they were sent 5 tickets anyway. Well, even the denial couldn't stop Susan. She decided to go ahead with her plan. After the Declaration of Independence had been read, Anthony and the other women marched down the aisle to the speaker's podium, and they handed the vice president their Declaration of Rights and scattered copies of it as they stomped out of the hall. Well, perhaps at quilting bees across the country, the ladies were abuzz with talk of Susan B. Anthony. Now, one of them may have even commemorated the event with this block. Ooh, the fabric is just great. It says 1776 to 1876, has some flags in it, eagles with their wings spread. It was even hand sewn completely. Pretty good for 120 years old. Now the women were quite serious about their quilting. They often carried their tools with them, had a little needle case like this one, and then to help them thread their needles, they used a needle threader just to get it right through the eye of that needle. Well, I identified the name of this block as a flash of diamonds. Well, Susan must have been a flash marching down that aisle. Well, this Lone Star quilt was made about the same time. It's never been laundered. Ooh, the fabric still has a crispness about it. Now, the 8-point diamonds in this star are sewn right in the top of this corner square. I just love that double pink on pink fabric. It's still so bright. Well, the center red just radiates out. Well, without a doubt, Susan B. Anthony was a star until her death at the age of 86 in 1906. Her final public utterance was, "Failure is impossible." For 41 years, the Anthony Amendment was presented to Congress until it became the 19th Amendment in 1920. The government issued the Susan B. Anthony dollar in 1979. It was almost as much as she earned in 1 week just a century earlier. Well, remember Susan B. Anthony as you quilt on your stars.